Also, Benjamin Chow in Shanghai, a professor of the Paris School of Business. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on Global Watch today. Lawrence, let me start with you. Hong Kong is becoming notorious as a place of violence. As we look back at Hong Kong in 2019, much of the year is marked by confrontation between police and protesters. In your observation, have law enforcement authorities been dealing with protesters properly and effectively?
No, the Hong Kong police has been swiftly and efficiently in combating crime all along, and including these social unrest and riots recently. The prosecution in the Justice Department have been collecting evidence and assessing them and then pushing them through the court system for prosecution. And the court system, although they have a number of backlog cases, have been quite swiftly and efficiently processing and dealing with these trials of the matters. And the judges nowadays are more cautious in granting bails because they are now fully appreciate of the real risk that these protesters or rioters would abscond from Hong Kong to places like Taiwan to avoid trial. Overall, the system has been quite suitable, has been handling or containing the situation suitably well.
Benjamin, I want to now get a business side and economic side of the story from you here. The Hong Kong SAR government forecasts the economy will shrink by 1.3% this year, but many banks say Hong Kong's financial sector is rather stable given the condition. Why is that the case? What has been propping up the financial sector? Will it stay that way going into 2020? And also your predictions on the economy in the coming year?
Sure. Unlike retail and tourism, which negative effects are immediate if tourists are not coming, the effect on the financial industry is different. Hong Kong remains a strong FDI channel for China. It has no capital control. It has a well-renowned financial infrastructure and talents playing a very strong role for the Belt and Road Initiative. It raises debt for the Chinese government and helps the internationalization of the renminbi. Also, Alibaba's new IPO is a strong signal that Hong Kong will continue to be a strong equity market for Chinese companies. Overall, this year, the negative GDP growth will continue at least to the first half of next year. Asset prices of retail shops, we have already seen a drop of 30%, but it will continue to drop next year. But housing prices are very stable because the land supply is still so limited, even though major land tycoons have unprecedentedly donated lands for cheaper housing. That's the internal factor. For external factor, even if the trade war enters into the first agreement stage, the conflict between China and the US will continue for a few years, impacting the re-export of Hong Kong. Though the ratio to the US is playing a smaller role anyway. Hong Kong is now out of the top 5 slots for busiest international container port and not even to Qingdao. The Hong Kong international trade and logistics sector is now over 20% of the economy. Very important because it's more than the finance sector. Anyhow, Hong Kong dollar assets is a hedge against the renminbi, especially for the fear that there are significant changes to the renminbi-US exchange rate. So I think overall infrastructure is still good.
Benjamin, Lawrence, do bear with me here on our program. I'll be circling back to you both in just a moment. Now, since the unrest began, CGTN has sent 9 reporting teams to document the events there. They talked to some protesters to see what they want.
Because we cannot change in the government, so we have to go out to the street and do something like block the road and burn the blue, like pro-China shop to let the tyranny and police they know that we are totally against it.
We are just a small city from China. The area is too small, but then with too many people, 7.5 million already, but the housing is not enough.
Let's come back to my guests, Barrister Lawrence Ma in Hong Kong and Professor Benjamin Chow in Shanghai. Lawrence, people want Hong Kong to return to rule of law, and people expect the rule of law to help Hong Kong given the current situation. When dealing with protesters who break the law by rioting as they so-called express their wishes, what are the laws that protect people's rights of expression? What are the laws that protect people's safety?
Now, the Hong Kong Basic Law and the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights both guarantee the freedom of expression and freedom of assembly. The freedom of expression and freedom of assembly are individual rights, and these individual rights are general rights. They have to be balanced with the community right. And these individual rights can be restricted legally and proportionately. Overall, in Hong Kong, since 1997, Hong Kong people have been exercising the right of free speech and the right of assembly very, very freely. And we see those rights, or exercise of those rights, expanding rather than shrinking or diminishing.
All right, and Benjamin, many of those protesters are young people, teenagers, people in their early 20s who have expressed worries about their future in the city. High property prices and low mobility of social status, social class have certainly added to their worries. Help us understand the situation there, and is income equality a factor in their decision to take to the extreme?
Well, I think people worry because they have at least time to worry. There are issues, real issues here. But you know, if we look back at the history, Hong Kong is built also by many who swam across the river empty-handed, who work day and night without holidays, just like my parents. The Gini coefficient always reported misguided the public about a widening income inequality in Hong Kong. The measure reported based on household income, which is biased as the average Hong Kong family size has decreased. Adjusted for per capita income, the disparity has not increased at all. It is true, however, that housing prices are getting extremely unaffordable to youngsters. In the last 6 years, housing prices increased 255%, but the average real wage for youngsters between 20 and 25 increased only 30%. But the assumption is that they are not willing to take a 40-minute train to Shenzhen for much cheaper housing, not to mention way cheaper housing further into the mainland, where when the Britons left after the handover, they created the political competition market, brought in rent-seeking activities. Its effect, well, 10 big infrastructure projects were initiated and completed in just 7 years, right before the handover. But now, consultation period alone is 3 years. By consultation, we ask the vested interest groups whether they need to complain. And the result, of course, more complaint. And we see huge land plot at the size of an airport in the middle of the city center, undeveloped for 20 years. So I think there are a lot of issues going on. I think it's all about confidence, about embracement, about taking the future into the hands of those who are willing to work hard. Back to you.
Benjamin Lawrence, we've been soliciting your help in understanding the situation many, many times in the past year. One more thank you to your analysis and your opinion. We appreciate it. And apart from hurting Hong Kong's economy and stability, the protests have also infected the city with a social division that seems to be only getting more and more pronounced.
Yellow and blue. Hong Kong unrest is turning into a battle of colors on every front. The anti-government demonstrators call themselves Yellow Ribbons, and those who are showing support for police and the authorities are called Blue Ribbons. We happen to meet one Yellow Ribbon man and a Blue Ribbon woman outside their rally. This argument is just a small part of differences that are deeply rooted in Hong Kong society. When strongly held differing views are found in the same home, the hostilities are also casting a shadow.